I pledge myself to you, Tall. I pledge myself to you, Qui-Gon. With these words, two Jedi Knights acknowledged that their bond had grown beyond friendship and into love. Now Tall has been abducted in a trap that Qui-Gon feels he should have foreseen. Consumed by dark visions, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi must do everything in their power to get her back before it's too late. But that won't be easy in a land where nobody can be trusted, and everyone has something to hide. Hello!
Hello!
Welcome to Padawan Library. My name is Tim May, here as always with...
Levi Apprentice.
We are in the same room!
Woo, woo, woo!
We're in the same room. This is an in-person episode.
Yep, we're riding high after a very successful 19th episode.
Yeah, this is our 20th episode, episode 20.
Episode 20.
So yeah, 19 was Escape from Bodran. The second Join the Resistance novel. I feel like that's just a classic episode.
I feel like it's a landmark episode for us. We accomplished something. We practically landed on that hidden moon on Vandor.
What was it called? Tufts? What was it called? Tufts?
I don't remember what it was.
It was called Tufts. I'm almost positive. Tufts. Anyway, we're just kind of playing it loose today. Today we're back to Jedi Apprentice. We'll get to that in a bit. But, you want something to drink?
That would be great.
That
would be great.
Okay.
I thought
I can get you some water.
Oh, that would be great.
All right, you just vamp a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah. Feeling good. Feeling fine. It's a beautiful sunny day in Erie, Pennsylvania. My wife and I just had a lovely breakfast at a little restaurant called Panos. Very reasonably priced, very good breakfast.
Panos is good.
Yes, the pre-church crowd was in. The breakfast regulars, I would say.
Well, it's also Saturday, so probably wouldn't have a church crowd anyway. But
it is Saturday.
We lose track of time sometimes. It's reasonable. But I have to say, as far as Star Wars news goes, I don't have much to say. We only recorded the last episode 2 days ago.
Yes.
So,
there was the Mandalorian news.
What? Ooh, what? I don't know about this. What kind of news?
D23 is going to have a booth that's dedicated solely to Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm is doing a Mandalorian presentation. It's going to be Filoni and Favreau again, and we're probably...
You mean they're going to promote something that's coming out in November, in August?
Yes.
Whoa. Huge news. Huge news. We'll talk about that when it happens.
Yes. Who cares?
But I don't care about it right now. So when people, when there's news stories announcing, Comic-Con panels and stuff, I'm like, write about it when it happens. I don't care.
You got a point. You got me there.
But I'm not mad at you.
I know.
Whatever. Anyway.
So, yeah.
But I have to say, 20 episodes... I can't believe we've actually done this on a weekly basis.
Same.
It's pretty
for
surprising.
20, yeah.
We, probably none of our regular listeners know this. Maybe some of our occasional listeners might know this, but we used to host a movie podcast called Missing Reels that was where we publish an episode once every, say, 2 to 3 months,
Yes.
something like that. And I'm relatively proud of that show. I think it's fun. You can't find it on the internet. I'm sorry. I think maybe the first 3 are still on YouTube.
Okay, all right.
Something like that. So if you really love us, you love the banter, and you want to hear us talk about A Hard Day's Night, then you can check that out. I don't know if we said a bunch of like problematic stuff.
I'm sure we did.
It was
only
like 4 years ago, but everything's changed. So I don't know. But Star Wars is great.
I agree. It's the one thing that like we can rally ourselves behind enough to focus on weekly.
I think it's because we have the structure. That show was very nebulous. Basically, it was me showing you movies, which
yes,
I think was fun. And we had some good conversations that show. But this show, we have a goal. We're trying to read all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to make at the top of the show, because I wonder if people start to turn the show off at the end when we start wrapping up.
Okay.
I do that with some of my podcasts that I listen to.
I
agree. I understand it's nobody's criticizing you, listeners, if you do that. But I want to make a call for mailbag questions.
Oh yes,
we're doing a mailbag episode in September after we finish Jedi Apprentice.
Correct.
As a way to give us a week off, basically, so we don't have to read a Star Wars book.
Mm-hmm.
But, we'd like to have... We got a couple in.
Yes, we have.
But if we could get, I'd like to have, 10 to 12 at least that could spark a decent amount of conversation. Give you an hour of good content that week.
Spark the fire that will burn the First Order down.
Yes. But I don't know. I think... I'm happy with where the show is. Just creatively, I feel like we're on good groove lately.
Mm-hmm.
And
we've fallen into a stride.
Yeah, I like the I like the devoted fans we have so far have been fun, and I'm glad people are starting to read along with us. Mm-hmm. There are people that read Escape from Vodran.
I know
for our show. And so, like, hey, that's cool.
Because that's a wild book.
It's a wild book, and, we talked a lot about it last week.
And that's a 300-page book.
And I feel like, I didn't listen much... Normally, I listen through the whole episode before I post it, but we recorded it literally hours before it needed to be posted. So I just put it together and dropped it out there. But I heard bits of it, and I was like, oh, maybe we're being a little too harsh here. I don't know. I don't hate it, but, look forward. We're gonna talk about... the third one of those, and Puss in Boots, an episode of Puss in Boots. We got to pick that episode.
Yes, we do.
We'll hang on. We'll confer about this on a later.
We could just do it right now.
Okay. You want to just go with their first episode they wrote?
We could, but let's go by the episode title.
Okay, let's read the episode titles.
Okay, so let's see here.
Okay, we're looking it up. I have to say, Puss in Boots. I am not a fan of Shrek.
Okay.
I never liked Shrek. And this, maybe we could save this for the conversation.
No, continue.
But I never liked Shrek. I always thought it was, not that good. And then when Shrek 2 came out, I didn't see it I didn't see it in theaters. But then I think I saw it a year or two later, and I was like, I'm a big Antonio Banderas fan.
You're down with the Puss in Boots, is what you're saying.
I'm not down with him. Here's the thing: Puss in Boots obviously is a character of legend. He wasn't invented by Shrek. There's, I believe, in a Sao Takahata TV special from the 70s about Puss in Boots. It's not like...
But Shrek made him famous.
Made him famous for now. I mean, he was obviously a very famous folkloric character.
Okay, all right, yes.
Let's be fair.
Give it to a new generation. Repackaged, rebranded it.
Sure, and I remember thinking he was charming enough. I was shocked when they made a film spin-off.
I didn't see that.
And I am shocked still that they have this Netflix series. So
yes. I wonder how many episodes it is. I have the episode titles in front of me, but let's learn a little bit more about the Puss in Boots series. The plot. The famous cat protects the city of San Lorenzo, a mythical land invisible to the outside world. And it stars Eric Baza? Beauza.
He's the one who plays
I believe
Puss in Boots?
I believe he is Puss.
I figured they didn't get Banderas for...
Right.
They didn't tear him away from his Pedro Almodovar sets
Yes.
to record lines for
Yes.
a Netflix cartoon series.
Well,
who watches these? I'm sure the kids watch them, but like these Netflix cartoons, like they make them out of every DreamWorks movie.
They really every single one has one. That's like Pixar's not making like.
Well, they don't do. Why would they? I mean, they're doing a Monsters Inc. one apparently for Disney Plus.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but, I mean,
okay,
that'll be their first TV show. I doubt that anybody that worked on either of those movies is working on that.
There are 6 seasons of Puss in Boots.
6
seasons.
How
of
many
Puss in Boots.
episodes did our friends Ben Blacker and Ben Acker, our very good friends?
They are not our friends.
They're not. We don't know them at all. They seem like very nice.
They wrote
nice young men.
They wrote 10 episodes, and then one of them wrote another episode.
Well, let's
by
just
himself.
focus on the ones they wrote together.
Okay, these episodes are between 2015 and 2016. In Dreams, Skeleton Town, Pirate Booty, King Pickles, Swordsman, Stories Spell.
So you mean swordsman?
Swordsman. Swordsman. Stories, Spells, Luck, Sword, Adventure. I think King Pickles.
King Pickles sounds fun. In Dreams makes me think of the Roy Orbison song, which I like. But I think King Pickles, that's the one that got the biggest pop, certainly from the two of us.
It certainly did. So yeah, maybe it will be King
So if you
Pickles.
want to be ready for the episode in 2 or 3 weeks?
2 weeks after this episode, right? Because we're doing...
No, it'll be 2 more Jedi Apprentices.
And then, okay,
so
3.
3 weeks from now, we're going to do Attack on Starkiller Base, the third and final Join the Resistance novel. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be ready, I'm sure most of you guys have Netflix. You can just fire that up and watch the episode. What season is it in?
I don't know.
Well,
it's from 2016.
King Pickles. That's the episode of Puss in Boots we will be reviewing. And if it's successful, maybe we can launch a spin-off podcast, episode by episode reviews of Puss in Boots.
I like that.
So, jeez. Do you think, by the way, so we talked a little bit about the Sith Troopers on the previous episode.
Yes.
And I've just been thinking more about it.
Okay.
Here's my problem with the design. There is no new design element other than the color.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
It's just the same First Order Trooper design.
Right. And they put lines in the helmet like Captain...
there is another...
There's lines in the top of the helmet like how Phasma has lines in the top of her helmet.
Okay.
But that's it.
As we all know, Phasma, quote-unquote, rules, so maybe that's cool.
And if you look at the San Diego Comic-Con Black Series figure of it, it comes with like 5 different weapons. Like these huge, weird red weapons.
I wonder if they're the Emperor's stormtroopers. I don't want the Emperor to be alive in the flesh in this movie. I don't know.
But okay, let's think of this. Let's think of this as like if this is like say Nazi exploitation kind of a film. Like
that's what Star Wars is.
they have clone technology. Like the Empire could very logically have resurrected the Emperor.
Yes, I think it... Whatever. We'll talk about this for months, and then hopefully it won't happen, and we won't have to have a long conversation about it in our Rise of Skywalker.
But I will say this,
episode,
though. R2 is still missing.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of it.
And what's a reason that C-3PO would join Chewbacca and Poe Dameron and Finn and all of them on an adventure? And I think, the first movie is Luke Skywalker is missing. Who is one of the next most important characters?
R2-D2.
R2-D2 is missing. And if George had...
See, that would have been such a better idea for the first movie.
I agree. But if they consulted George would have looked at them. If they consulted George would have looked at them and they're like, well, what do we focus on? What's the point of the story?
And he would have talked about how the 2 droids are the most important characters, which is always kind of bullshit, but whatever, it's fine. But
it's going to be like Clone Wars. We had R2 missing in Clone Wars. We're getting an R2 missing episode.
I like that episode of Clone Wars. By the way, I know it's not on Netflix anymore, so that's why you haven't been watching Clone Wars.
Correct.
Right? So are you waiting for Disney
I'm waiting
Plus?
for Disney Plus.
Okay.
That'll be a perfect time.
Because that would be good. Because there's a lot of Rebels-themed content that fits this show.
Oh, right.
And it's all stuff that you only really need to see the first season for. So actually, you probably could watch it, because I know you've watched the first season of Rebels.
We could do that. We can totally do that.
There's some stuff. There's specifically, I think it's called Servants of the Empire, the 4-book series. Mm-hmm. That seems very cool. I have one of the Rebels books around here.
We'll get there.
We'll get to everything. Or we won't,
That's the whole point of Star Wars. You think you can complete it, but you can't.
Why not? We're definitely going to complete... You know what? Let's just talk about the show.
Okay.
Let's talk about the show.
Do it.
We're definitely going to finish all the Jude Watson books.
Oh,
that's
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You can bet, no matter how insane, how busy our lives get and everything, we are going to at least work towards that goal.
Yes.
There are other things. I want to cover Galaxy of Fear.
Of course.
I want to cover Junior Jedi Knights. I would like to cover a decent amount of the new material.
Right.
I will say, one thing I will say about the Join the Resistance books, one positive thing I'll say, is that it made me like Guardians of the Wills a lot more.
I agree with that. I agree.
Because I was just like, oh wow, this guy, part of his job is writing prose, and he's good at it.
Mm-hmm. And these other guys are not.
And I'm a big fan of Greg Rucka. And I was mildly disappointed by that book, but this book, books. Okay,
I know. And you know what? I've noticed something about these books.
Yes.
All of these new books have some form of illustrations in them.
That's true. Almost all of them.
Yep.
I have over here a book that we'll probably be covering in the fall, Cobalt Squadron, by Elizabeth Ween, that is about Rose and Paige before Last Jedi.
Right, and I want some Rose exploitation.
We're big Rose fans here, and we hope she has a decently sized role in Rise of Skywalker. We're both scared she will not. But anyway, this does have illustrations by Phil Noto, who's been kind of their go-to guy for a lot of these. Not for the Join the Resistance books, but basically all the other books that fall under our purview and scope have Phil Noto illustrations. Phil Noto's really good. By the way, Annie, we haven't talked about Annie Wu's illustrations.
We should on that.
And she's very good.
Yes.
I really like Annie Wu. She's a good comic book artist. She did a few Archie issues a couple years ago. I'm a fan of hers, and she does a very good job. So I don't want our distaste for these books to rub off on her work for the books.
Right. I will say this though: I thought the illustrations were better in the first book than the second book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it pays very well, but it is not her primary passion. So that's fine. I'm sure that she can cash those off pretty quick. But anyway, the show is just heating up right now. Uh-huh. We're heating up. We're going big time show right now.
Yeah.
And we're not. I wouldn't say big time, but very small time. But
yes.
The rest of this summer we got it all lined up. You guys all know we're going to finish it by September. We will be done with Jedi Apprentice.
We will.
And I think we mentioned this on the show. We're not going to be starting Jedi Quest, the sequel series, until
immediately.
November.
Right.
So, I will say this: those October we have reserved for something special. You might be able to guess what it is, but there's a couple weeks in September there that are a little up in the air. Mm-hmm. They're a little bit up in the air. So if there's something, a standalone book you really want us to cover,
let
us know. If you want us to go back and do book 2 of Jedi Prince,
yes,
we could do that. There are things we could do. There's a few weeks there that are up in the air. So I just want to put that out there. And, we've been talking for a while.
We have been. You want to get into the book?
We should probably get into the book. So, when we come back, we'll be talking about Jedi Apprentice, number 15.
The Death of Hope.
Stay tuned. And now, a reading from the upcoming 4th book in the best-selling Join the Resistance series. Mattis looked at AG's birthday cake, and it made him think back to his childhood on Dirkteel and hearing the stories of the great rebellion hero, Jack Porkins. He would stay out all day and into the evening when the hololights came on, just dreaming of Porkins' legendary Death Star run, imagining he was the big man himself, riding side by side with other legends like Luke Skywalker and Wedge Antilles. But Mattis always admired Porkins most. If he could be even half the pilot Porkins was, in more ways than one, Mattis could live with Joe's harsh rules. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, and this is Levi Peretic.
Hello!
Oh no, what have I done? This week is The Death of Hope, Jedi Apprentice number 15. 15 books!
We're nearly through.
Oh, only 5 more, really.
Yes, yeah. And that's I am excited and sad at the same time
because
I don't want it to end.
And I'm looking forward to Jedi Quest. I feel like that's going to be a true, full continuation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was looking at some stuff. I mean, this is kind of way off the reservation, but I was looking at some stuff about Last of the Jedi, the third Jude Watson series. And, I don't know if you knew this, but that series was originally pitched just as continuing Obi-Wan adventures.
Oh,
post
wow.
3. And that really only happens for the first 2, because Lucasfilm was like, he wasn't doing much. Which I don't disagree with, but, I'm curious how it if then the later books feel of a piece with Jude Watson. We'll talk about this next year. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that book because for one of our 2 main characters to have a continued story where one of our main character dies, and then to give them a new partner, a new sidekick in crime, because they're Batman and Robin.
Yeah,
they're Sherlock and Watson. They are.
You are reading now.
They are. They are
characters.
Leslie Nielsen and
O.J. Simpson.
O.J. Simpson. Yes.
I don't know. I'm very. Returning to this was like a warm blanket. Although there's a very intense entry in the series, but I feel like these books are still the gold standard.
They are.
Of what we're trying to do with this. I worry. I'm like, is there another series that's... I mean, I'm looking forward to Jedi Quest. I feel like that's probably going to be roughly just a continuation in terms of quality. But is there another series, not by Jude Watson, that is the equivalent quality-wise? I'm sure there's... I'm excited to read Galaxy of Fear. I bet that's a lot of fun. But is that the equivalent of Jedi Apprentice? We'll find out eventually.
Yes.
Maybe later this year. Who knows? What could we possibly be planning for October, Levi?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
we got something.
Is there a book? Is there a series of Star Wars books with a horror theme?
Well,
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I'm trying to think of other...
Death Troopers, of course. We're reviewing 4 episodes just on Death Troopers. Anyway. Okay. So where we last left off in the previous book, which was
14.
What was the title?
Oh, the title.
I have them all here.
Oh, what is the title of that?
The Ties That Bind. Of course.
Ties That Bind.
I apologize for all the Springsteen dork bullshit that I subjected our audience to, but it's just hey.
It's a great song.
It's a great song, and he's my favorite. So anyway, The Death of Hope. That's not a song. And there might be a song called that, but I don't know who. So, Ties That Bind ends with... Remember, the Ties That Bind was set on this planet called New Absalon, right?
Yes, New Absalon. Formerly Absalon.
And Qui-Gon and Tall had been there many years earlier, and something happened, and Tall wound up going back, and Qui-Gon had a vision about Tall, and that she might die, and And all kinds of stuff happen. And ultimately, at the end of the book, Qui-Gon and Tall express their love for each other, and they commit themselves to each other. They essentially have an informal marriage happens at the end of that book. And then Tall goes to meet with the government, some arcane stuff. We'll get into it, I'm sure, a little bit. And she gets essentially kidnapped. That's how the book ends. That's where we're left off, right?
Correct.
Okay. So,
Chapter 1.
a lot of stuff going on. Chapter 1. I have... There! Qui-Gon, he's behaving very strangely. He's impatient and impulsive. They must find Tall now, Levi. Now!
It's important!
So, Obi-Wan thinks they should contact the Jedi Council, but Qui-Gon says they should find Tall first. Too many people on New Absalom distrust the Jedi. Bringing more here would be a mistake. Obi-Wan plays Qui-Gon's usual role and goes over what they already know, essentially doing what I just did, recapping that last book. Ultimately, they have no clue where Balog, by the way, is the guy that kidnapped Tall, and he was a handmaiden to whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Go listen to the other episode. Balog could have taken Tall. He has no clue where. Blah, blah. I'm going crazy.
You were going nuts.
So anyway, he has no clue where Balog could have taken Tall. And Balog, remember, is one of the workers. Remember, this planet is divided between the workers
and the civilized.
The civilized, and there's a group of the civilized called the
Absolutes.
The Absolutes, who, essentially are just, the fascist sect of the rich people. Blah, blah, blah. So, it's a very typical Jedi Apprentice style planet with some very stratified caste systems and all this stuff. And, Balog, he's one of the workers, and the old probe droids that remember are outlawed.
Correct.
Since the war on this planet, those probe droids, they have data on all the workers. So they decide to get their hands on a probe droid, and it would be a good place to start. They could search using the probe droid. They have data on Balog probably in the probe droids. In the probe droids! So Alani, remember, one of the twin sisters.
Correct.
That is they're the daughters of Ewain, who was the governor, was the king or the governor or whatever, and he was murdered. That's what started this whole mess in the first place. And so Alani, she overhears Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon talking about this, and she suggests seeking out Lens, who is the leader of the workers. He may be reluctant to help the Jedi, but if they tell him Alani sent them, he should help. He took care of Alani and Aretha, the two sisters, after their father died. There's one problem. Lens moves around all the time. Where could he be? Where could he be? Where could he be? So, someone might know. There's one person who might know. Her name is Orini, the woman from the museum in the previous book. And remember, she may have tried to kill Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon with a probe droid, even though she was talking about how they were outlawed, blah, blah, blah. She may not want to help them, but she would have to help them if Lens wanted to help them, blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
That's the first chapter. That's how things start in this book, Levi.
I know. And I want to point out that when I arrived here today,
yes.
Tim told me that what time did you go to bed last night?
I woke up.
Oh, what time did you go to bed?
I went to bed at like 8.
Okay. And you told me you woke up at midnight.
It's 12:50 a.m.
Okay.
12:50 a.m. and I read the book
Uh-huh.
until about 4 a.m. and I was like, I'll probably get back to sleep after that.
Yeah.
It did not happen. So, as we speak, it is 1:15. I've been up for over 12 hours, and I'm going to be up till probably at least 10 or 11 tonight.
We were going to a barbecue after this.
Can't wait.
You are wired. Did you have coffee or something? Are you a coffee drinker?
No, I don't like coffee.
Nor do I. Okay.
All right, let's move on to chapter
All right,
2. I want to finish this.
Okay.
We're already well on our way.
All right. At the start of Chapter 2, we get a peek of what's going on inside Qui-Gon's head. Again, this is mostly a refresher course, but it's wonderfully written. Here's a little snippet from page 10. Why had the visions of Tal in trouble come to him, haunted him, driven him? Why did just the sight of her suddenly irritate and warm him at the same time? Then, in one blinding moment, he had received his answer. He had felt a shock so deep it seemed his body could not contain it. He had found that he was not just a Jedi, but a man. The fever was in his blood. Hang on.
And the fever in his blood was tall. Oh, damn. So, here's the thing. This introduces an interesting element of this book, which is the flashback structure. And we'll talk more about this as we go. And there's going to be entire flashbacks that we read, guys. So, for later in the book. But, talk about the flashback.
All right. So we have that going on, and from there we head to the Absolutes Museum, only to discover that it's closed and doesn't open for another 15 minutes. Qui-Gon does not have 15 minutes. He starts pounding on the door until Irini finally opens it. She's not thrilled to see them because the night before, when she came to them with some information at the governor's mansion, when they stormed out because they figured out that Tal was in trouble, the security guards dragged her out of the governor's mansion. They disrespected her, Tim. They disrespected Irini.
Irini is an interesting character. Well, we don't have much opportunity to talk about her going forward because she's not really in much of the rest of the book, but I found her fairly compelling. I'm curious if she'll come back in the next book at all. Because there's some...
We're going to be on New Epsilon again.
There's some lingering mystery going on with her, Lens, the sisters. I was trying to sound like Darth Vader there for a second, and then I was like, I'm not committing fully to this. But, yeah, okay, keep going.
Everyone's a suspect. This is like Knives Out.
Oh, that's a movie that's coming out.
It is.
Directed by Mr. Johnson.
So they inform her that of the recent developments, and she is genuinely surprised that Balog is the culprit. She says, though, he will be a formidable enemy. However, she doesn't know where Lens is. She also implies that the Absolutes were probably pissed at Tal for her infiltration. She gets real snippy. Well, Qui-Gon, he gets real snippy, and he's wondering how she already knows about Tal and the Absolutes. So, she ducks the question, but she doesn't know why she should help him because she believes that the Jedi are not on the workers' side. Obi reminds her that their enemy and her enemy are the Absolutes, and finding Tal could lead them to information that is important to the worker cause. So she finally caves. She takes him to see Lens. We meet Lens. He agrees to get him a probe droid. He mentions that the government unrest and how some of the workers are trying to push them to strike and pull some more industrial sabotage again. Lens fears that doing so would cause them to lose favor with the civilized, thus lose their chances to elect a new worker leader.
There's a lot here, guys. People say the prequels have lots of politics. Why?
What's going on? This government
politics.
The Absalon's government can collapse at any moment. Okay. Qui-Gon expresses some puzzlement over how Balog could power over Tal even without her lightsaber, and they inform her that Absolutes are known for using a paralyzing agent that leaves people conscious but incapable of moving. They warn him that if she gets too many doses, the damage could be permanent and even lead to death. The thought of Tal's weak body, it coincides with that vision that Qui-Gon keeps having, that vision of her weak body in his arms and her dark eyes. But Qui-Gon, he suspects they're hiding more information from them, so he doesn't like to use it, but he puts his bad cop face on, and Obi-Wan joins in. They intimidate them, and the guys immediately cave, and the information that they give them is that there is an encrypted list of people who have been informers to the Absolutes. The last person they know who had this list was Rowan. They wonder if maybe...
And remember, Rowan was the second in command to Ewan.
Yes.
Who was the former governor, and and Rowan was suspected of murdering Ewan. And for that, he got murdered by a mob or something in the last book.
It was the kidnappers.
The kidnappers.
Yes.
Mob. Yes. I'm sorry.
So they wonder.
That's why people have the full context. They need the full context, Levi.
It gets so less complicated in later chapters.
Oh yeah, this book is very straightforward, but we need to lay the groundwork.
Right. So Balog probably needs the list, and maybe he took Tall because he believes that Tall has the list. Qui-Gon is certain that Tall doesn't have the list, but he fears that when Balog realizes this, he will dispose of her. Chapter 3.
So, Irini and Lens, they lead them to a bombed-out slum area. They go inside one building and are greeted by Moda, a black market dealer who can apparently provide them with probe droids for a price. Yes, for a price. Qui-Gon impatiently says that they'll pay whatever he wants, and Moda agrees. Moda programs a probe droid to do a preliminary search for Balog in the city and sends it off while Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon check out Moda's hot transports. And hot in more ways than one, if you know what I mean. And so, after they pick out a speeder and a swoop, respectively, the probe droid returns with information. Balog has left the city for open country. Qui-Gon programs the droid to track Balog beyond the city. They need to move fast. Irini asks, what are you going to do with that informant list if Tall does have that informant list, you know? And so Qui-Gon says the Jedi will offer to hold on to the list as a neutral party until a new leader is chosen here on New Absalom. Irini reluctantly agrees to this plan. In the distance, though, while this is happening, in the distance they hear, speeders! There's a patrol! Everyone's got to get out of here! Irini and Lens, they know these streets, so they just kind of slip out. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they escape on the transports they rented from Moda, and they reach Balog's point of departure in the city and leave. The patrol was not a real obstacle. So, and on their way, so they're on their way to find Balog, hopefully Tall as well.
They head to the coordinates, and they find that Balog isn't there, but a quick examination of the grounds reveals tracks that they can follow. The probe droid meets up with them again and confirms that they're heading in the right direction. They ride all night to their next set of coordinates. When they get close, Qui-Gon suggests they walk, because if Balog is breaking down a camp, they don't want to alert him with their vehicles. Qui-Gon, he believes that Balog is just over the crest of this hill, but when they get to the crest, they look down and see nothing. Tired and hungry, with nothing but the Force keeping them going, Obi-Wan places his hand on Qui-Gon's shoulders and says, "Let's keep going."
Damn. So, the probe droid returns with new coordinates. Balog is moving fast, perhaps towards a destination where he feels safe. They must intercept him before he reaches that safety. They must travel once again through the night. Obi-Wan no longer feels exhausted, just he feels like adrenaline. He's like, I've been up for 2 days straight, but I gotta go. He's like a certain, he's like me right now. Like me right now, Levi.
He's exactly like you. He's a determined man.
So eventually, they see a fire set up in the distance and a person lying down next to it. Is that Balog? Or could it even be Tall? Qui-Gon urges Obi-Wan to wait. He senses something. 2 other probe droids ahead! It's a trap!
So Balog's probe droids are programmed to attack. Our heroes fearlessly dive into battle and make quick work of them. However, Obi-Wan's swoop takes some blaster fire and needs repaired before it can go anywhere, which could take a couple hours. Obi-Wan, he knows that Qui-Gon, he knows that Qui-Gon must go now. But there's a problem with that, because if they abandon the swoop and Obi-Wan gets in the speeder, there's only 2 seats. There's no room for Tall. However, if they stay and repair, it's going to take a couple hours. Obi-Wan suggests that Qui-Gon go ahead, but Qui-Gon goes, "No, I will not leave you. I need your help," kind of thing. They say, though, but the Balag knows that they're onto him. So when his probe droids won't return, they'll know that they failed, and more traps for them may lay ahead.
Okay, first I want to take a break here.
Okay, breath.
And apologize to our listeners and to you for heating us up so hard, so quick.
We are at a rolling boil,
so,
and the hard-boiled eggs are being left in a little too long.
We need to take a beat,
okay,
and relax a little bit. So
do some yogic breath.
Yeah, sure. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We were riding high on that energy from the last episode, and we were riding it straight into the sun.
It's true. It's true. I if listeners like that, I can work myself up into that lather pretty quickly. But that was pretty intense. And so how are you doing in your life? Good. How's it going?
It's been going good.
Good.
I've had I've been working a lot, a little tired. The hot weather,
the hot
weather's a little bit of a killer. But where I went? The reason why we were late getting here is because we went to breakfast, and then we thought, you know what? I felt like we've had a little bit of a tough weekend. Let's relax a little bit. Mel, let's go and ride the Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldemere Park. Okay.
That's a fun roller coaster.
So we went there, and it's Saturday, and everybody was there. It was like Cedar Point, and it wasn't open. So
they open at 1, I believe.
Yes. So I didn't have time for that. I knew I needed to record that. So we rode the Wacky Shack.
Wacky Shack's great.
The Wacky Shack is amazing.
So people should know about the Wacky Shack. Waldemere is a theme park in Erie, Pennsylvania. A very old amusement park, opened in the late 1800s. And the Wacky Shack is from the 50s, probably. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the oldest dark rides in the country. That is, that's run continuously. That's not like some sort of revival. Mm-hmm. And it's great. So you guys should check out the Wacky Shack. Maybe I'll drop in a little audio of the wine thing. I have that. I have an MP3 of that.
Hello, Earthlings.
So we're going to take a beat. Listen to this. That is good stuff. Don't never throw things at me, or I'll see that you lose your wristband. Maybe with your arms still attached. I'll be watching to see if you behave yourselves.
Well, here's what I want.
Hello, Earthlings.
Here's what I want to talk about, because they play that on a loop when you're in the line, and you get on the ride. So this is his house. He does not consider himself an Earthling, so is he an extraterrestrial? Is he a ghost? And then the theme of the house is just, it's a hell house kind of thing. And it's pretty wild. It's a wild
dark ride. There's
a hill and a curve that you go down that's pretty neat.
It's pretty cool. There's another dark ride, a walk-through dark ride at Waldemere called Pirates Cove that is also pretty good. So I'm just saying, come to Erie, PA. Erie, PA is good. It has a wonderful amusement park. Beautiful Presque Isle is a beautiful beaches. It's a wonderful place. Come support my local economy. Anyway, one more thing before we get back into the book. I mentioned I got a colonoscopy, I think, on the last episode. And I just wanted to say, I'm okay.
Yay!
Everything's fine. They found a polyp that they removed.
Oh, good.
And, it was a pre-cancer, but it wouldn't have developed into a cancer for 10 years, if at all. Mm-hmm. And I'm fine.
Great.
I'm fine. It sounds like I'm not fine because I'm just bringing this up.
That's fabulous.
But I'm fine. So
it's fabulous news.
Chapter 7.
Yes.
So I'll be able to... My point is, listeners, if you were worried, Tim's getting a colonoscopy, he might not be able to do the show anymore. He might not be able to do the show anymore.
Which we don't want.
It'll be at least 10 years before I croak. So, moving on. I'm fine. Chapter 7. There's a flashback. This chapter 7 begins with a flashback. Mm-hmm. And Qui-Gon is meditating in a star map room at the Jedi Temple. Tal comes in and interrupts him. They've been arguing a lot lately, mostly about her relationship with her Padawan, Bant. So this isn't that long ago.
Right.
This is within the last couple of years since Bant was taken on as a Padawan learner by Tall. And Bant, remember, of course, is Obi-Wan's good friend. I do not believe... I talk a lot about people that want to fuck each other or kiss each other, but I think they're just very good friends.
They are...
There's never been any... I've never felt... I think Obi-Wan might have had a schoolboy desire to fuck the one girl from
Are you
Melita Dawn.
Okay.
But not like in a serious way.
She would be the closest. She's the closest he's ever gotten, like, with a person. Because, like, I feel like they were physically closer than him and Bant were.
Sure. But I don't know. I think Obi-Wan doesn't... I'm guessing we're going to get potential Obi-Wan love interest a lot in Jedi Quest. Because, like I say, when we're talking about the younger characters, I prefer to say they want to kiss because it's inappropriate for us to sexualize these characters. And
I want to say... and you know what? If in your questions, if you think we're talking about fucking too much... Please tell us.
It's fun.
We will stop the fun.
We're all adults here. The podcast has an explicit rating. It's fine. If you actually, please, if we are talking about it too much, you guys can tell us.
Just tell us, please.
And we'll cut back on it. Anyway.
Chapter 7.
So yeah, Tall interrupts Qui-Gon meditating in the Jedi Temple. And they've been arguing a lot. And they have a heartfelt and playful conversation. Which is nice. And it was the last conversation of that sort they ever had until this point. I don't want to give anything away.
Right.
But until this point. So anyway, back to the present. They follow, or should I say, 40 BBY. So, they follow the new coordinates brought to them by their probe droid to the rock quarries of New Absalom. Qui-Gon is too consumed by his future union with Tall. He must remain present. He's reflecting on this. And he feels bad about how badly Obi-Wan feels about the delay that they had. And how can he lead his Padawan when he is so consumed, so obsessed? He must focus. He feels a tremor in the Force. Unrelated to Tall. Someone is following them. He doesn't alert Obi-Wan right away. They ride on. But when they stop again, the feeling is too overpowering. Qui-Gon must tell Obi-Wan. And he does. And Obi-Wan seems kind of annoyed at first. But Qui-Gon suggests they track down their pursuer before moving on. A delay in the short term, perhaps. But it might save them some hassle later. So they quickly track down the assailant. And who could it be but Aretha? One of the sisters. Not Alani, who sent them on this whole wild goose chase, but Aretha, a different sister. It's very surprising. She says that she's been traveling for days trying to find them. She says this. She also says she knows who was backing Balog. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The identity of the mystery backer. This is like an episode of Dallas right now.
Tune in next week.
Aretha's own sister, Alani.
Whoa.
Oh, she in league with Balog? Keep reading.
Her identical twin sister.
We must keep reading.
Now, Ithra kind of sounds like Earth. I was saying
Aretha.
It sounds like...
It seemed like a classic Star Wars name that's just a regular name that they spelled in a weird way.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like Urethra.
No, you're being disrespectful to the late Aretha Franklin right now.
Okay, alright. Well, Ithra.
I don't know.
Okay, so she overheard a calm conversation with her sister, who was talking to Balog. She can confirm that Tall is alive. Tall is alive. I'm shaking the table because that's how
this episode's going.
That's how this episode's going.
I was a little bit legitimately startled by that.
Okay, sorry.
It's fine. I wonder how that sounds on mic.
We will find out.
We'll see. We'll see.
Tall's alive. She's being kept in the sensory deprivation tank, but she doesn't know her whereabouts. She explains that she believes her sister, her plan, she orchestrated the kidnapping and Rowan's murder so that she could gain power. As they speak, she believes that Alani is at the legislature trying to charm them into making her the new leader of New Absalom.
Classic Alani.
Yes. Since she was a child of her father and that she has the backing of the workers, she'd be an easy shoo-in for the thing. However, she's an alliance with the Absolutes, and that if she comes to power, she will reinstate them and return the government to how it was before. All of Qui-Gon and Tall's work will be destroyed. Their work from 7 years ago will be obliterated by Alani. So
and Alani has the gall to claim she cares about Tall. But
right, it's like
I don't know. There's
this
a lot
weird
of
betrayal.
With these two characters, these two sisters. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
And
we really don't know, even though we've read this whole book. I don't know.
Everyone's a suspect. Now
there are heroes on both sides. Villains are everywhere.
Now they're informed that Qui-Gon. Now that they're informed, Qui-Gon, he tries to turn her away, telling her to go home, but she refuses, and she came with a coat full of blasters and explosives. She will not sit by while her sister shames her father's memory and their planet. Qui-Gon caves, but then suddenly a rock near them explodes. It appears the fight has found them.
Oh boy, this attack. Who is this attack? Apparently not Balog. It's a group of people all wearing a similar uniform. And they've got kind of ashen skin, like literally ash on their skin. Mm-hmm. And they're using some sort of tools to create landslides in an effort to trap our heroes. In the crossfire, the probe droid is destroyed, and a stray rock hits Obi-Wan's leg in midair. Oh! Qui-Gon catches him and lands safely on the ground, but the attackers have succeeded in trapping them between a couple landslides. Suddenly, a mole miner vehicle begins burrowing through the rock trap. Their attackers are miners? Miners are their attackers? Miners?
Yes.
Anyway, Aretha thinks this might not be so bad. She climbs to the top of the rock wall, and Qui-Gon follows to protect her. But a couple of people pop out of the mole miner and greet Aretha with respect. Daughter of Ewan, we are at your service. These people are apparently the rock workers. They're friends of the tech workers from the city. They're allies, And they thought that Qui-Gon and company were a team sent by the Absolutes who have apparently been raiding their settlements and stealing supplies. Qui-Gon informs them of their destroyed droid, or as I say, destroyed droid. Anyway... This was stupid. I wrote that in my notes. I needed to say it, and I realized it was me at 3 a.m, making no sense to myself. So, and he informs them that the droid was destroyed, and Obi-Wan's injured, and they offer to take them back to their village, have a doctor who can treat Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan can be treated by a doctor.
All right.
Levi.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I just spent the last, 2 minutes... I have a page number for this next section. That's page 68 and 69 if you want to follow along. But I was looking in the book and I'm comparing my notes to what I'm seeing on the page. I have nothing marked. And then I realized I'm holding the wrong book. I'm holding the next book, The Call to Vengeance.
Oh, there you go.
And I was very confused.
Spoiler.
I did not get a spoiler. Okay. Remember how the last book opened with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon camping on Ragoon 6?
This was 2 weeks ago, guys.
Yes.
Honestly, the off week was a terrible time.
Yeah.
It was a terrible time. I was reading this, I was like, a lot of... I had to remember a lot of stuff as I was reading this morning.
I know.
Okay.
They cover a lot
All
of it.
right, let's keep
going. So, remember how they mentioned that Qui-Gon had been on Ragoon 6 before? And he was there with Tall. Tall took him there after his former apprentice, Xanatos, had turned to the dark side. She knew that Qui-Gon, he needed some time outside of the temple to keep his head clear. Together on Rangoon 6, they push their bodies to the limit.
Oh,
hiking and climbing the mountains, of course. Come on, get your head out of the gutter, Tim.
Oh, man, you know what they were doing.
All right, so we're going to read 68.
They were hiking.
They were hiking.
It's true, that's all they were
68, 69.
Okay. Where are we starting?
They paused to rest on the flat rock. I'll read for Tall.
Okay.
All right. They paused to rest on the flat rock overlooking the deep valley. Do you see that flying Irid? Tall said, pointing. Look at the yellow under the sides of its wings.
Qui-Gon looked where she pointed. Tall could always see farther than he could. He waited until his eyes could track the bird, a flash of brilliant color in the blue sky. Beautiful.
Yes, but they are horrible. They attack their own kind. It's strange, though.
Oh my god. Who is the one who's working on such little sleeves?
They nurture their young with great care. They teach them to fly, to hunt, to nest. Yet when their young reach maturity, they are just likely to eat their parents as they are each other.
Qui-Gon stared out at the valley. Are parables supposed to make me feel better? I know you are talking about Xanatos. I nurtured him, and he betrayed me. It was not my fault. It was his nature. Is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about Irids, Tall said, composedly. But now that you brought him up...
Excuse me, I didn't.
I'd like to make one point. You can't control everything you touch, Qui-Gon, and you can't make sense of everything either, no matter how much you analyze or meditate, not even you.
This is not about ego, he said.
She shot him a keen look of all emerald and gold. Isn't it?
Oh, crushed. Tall just crushed Qui-Gon.
And this is a reoccurring problem with Qui-Gon, is Qui-Gon, he wants to be always at the center of the action.
Oh, he is, you know. He's one of the greatest Jedi.
He is.
He's a maverick. I don't mean in a John McCain way either. I mean in a real way.
There's a reason why he's not on the council. Back on
maybe because of this Tall shit.
Maybe it's not the first time Qui-Gon has done stuff against the will of the council. Back on New Absalom, the core workers get Obi-Wan to a medic named Yancey. She says that Obi-Wan is not badly injured and he'll heal fast. We just got to get the boy into some Bacta. They wheel Obi-Wan away, and Qui-Gon and Earthra strike up a conversation with some of the workers. Qui-Gon starts to inquire about the absolute raids on the workers. Apparently there are about 30 of them, and they have raided 5 times in the last month. They stole a majority of their weapons, and now the workers must use their mining tools to defend themselves. If they lose those, then they may lose their mining business entirely.
Damn.
And there are only 40 workers. That includes elderly and children. And there were casualties at the raids. So Qui-Gon, he wonders where the Absolutes are getting their weapons, and he wonders if maybe there's a connection with Moda, that dude who sold him the probe droid. And he also wonders where their hideout is. He wonders if it's in the city, and the workers, they tell him that because of the frequency of the attacks, it has to be somewhere close, and that they must be hiding somewhere in the quarry. Yancey! I really like that name.
You're a fan.
She comes back and says Obi-Wan must at least stay the night or he could face permanent damage. As much as Qui-Gon wishes to leave and search for the woman he has committed himself to, he knows that he cannot leave Obi-Wan's side. And on page 75, just a little bit, Tall felt farther away than ever. Be strong, Tall. You pledged your life to me. I gave you my heart. Know that I will find you.
Damn. So, the rock workers, if they fear one thing more than the absolute attacks, what they fear is Chapter 11, bankruptcy.
Which will happen if
it will.
If they lose their goals.
Beginning this chapter, flashback, further back. We keep moving a little bit further back each time. A little bit further back, Qui-Gon has just become a Jedi Knight, and Yoda is urging him to take on a Padawan. He decides to take one more solo mission to mull this over, and he had to stop on a planet called Zukale on his way. Zukale is a typical kind of scummy underworld planet, Star Wars planet. And Qui-Gon's in a cantina and overhears an argument between Azuku and... Wait, whose voice is that? Huh? Is that Tall's voice? He hasn't seen her in years. But she sees him and comes over, tells him she doesn't have much time, she is on a mission, but he tells her all about his life in a minute. So we're going to read on pages 78 and 79. We're going to start... you read Tall and start with, well, it's you.
Well, it's you, she said. It's been so long.
Too long.
I only have a minute, she said. I'm on a mission.
Only a minute when they hadn't seen each other in years. So tell me everything as fast as you... Wait. I'm sorry, I screwed up. That's Tall's line.
So tell me everything as fast as you can, she said, laughing. You look well. I hear you're a knight now.
As are you, Qui-Gon said. I'm thinking of taking a Padawan. Yoda is urging me to consider it.
Do you have a candidate?
Xanatos.
She nodded slowly. He is gifted. I would consider carefully, however. I'm not sure he's a right for you.
I haven't seen you in years, and you're giving me advice? He teased.
Who else in the galaxy understands you so well? She answered smilingly.
No one, he admitted. You were wrong about you were wrong about that. Remember what you said when we said goodbye?
Her smile grew soft. I'm glad, she said, to have been wrong about that. I'm glad to still be the one who knows you best. And we never say goodbye, remember?
They sat for a moment in silence, remembering the temple, the days when they had looked forward so eagerly to becoming Jedi Knights. They hadn't known then how hard it would turn out to be. Neither had known how deeply satisfying it would be at the same time. Yes, a life of service suited him. Suited Tall, he could see. And it was something to have this connection now, still so strong, after so many years.
I have to go, she said softly. I will see you soon. Missions can be short, you know.
He smiled, remembering the eager young Tall, who had said that so confidently years ago. She stood. She did not say goodbye. He knew she wouldn't. No more than she ever said hello. With a last smile, she walked out of the cafe and did not look back. So that's a really cool scene. And this is actually, I'm going to propose a theory here. Mm-hmm. What the kids call theories and what we call just, comparative analysis. But I'm sorry for being so condescending. I'm sure probably there's listeners I turn off.
You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
It's fine.
Let them turn it off.
Okay. So
if they can't handle the May, then they don't get the June.
Oh, no. No.
It was the only thing I could think of.
Anyway, so the film, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which you apparently have not seen. I just rewatched it recently, so this is going to be a spoiler for you. You're going to get over it. You'll be fine. It's a great film.
I'll still watch it.
So, that movie stars... There's 3 stars. One, it's Chow Yun-Fat and Michelle Yeoh and Zhang Zi. She's not very important to this comparison, but Qui-Gon and Tall are very much like the Chow Yun-Fat and Michelle Yeoh characters in that film, in that they have loved each other their entire life, their whole lives. Clearly, they've loved each other. It's been a totally mutual thing. They know about it, basically. Mm-hmm. But because of duty and honor and their rules, they've had to stay apart because they've wanted to pursue whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And they feel like, even though, but through a modern context, you're like, you could both pursue those goals together and it's not a problem. But they felt obligated. And in the Jedi is a similar structure as this kind of, this ancient Chinese court system. And that film ends. We'll talk a little bit. I'll bring it up again when we get to the end of this book, because I don't want to. If you're listening to this and you're like, "What's going to happen?" I don't want to spoil things, but that film ends beautifully. We'll post a clip from that movie.
Okay.
On the social media, and we're going to talk about. I want we need to engage in some of the interesting parallels here. This book also came out in 2001, which is a year after Crouching Tiger. I don't think it's a direct influence, but it's interesting. I feel like the relationship is so... it's not like a doomed relationship in the traditional sense. It's just... they're two people who clearly love each other and just realize the specific nature of the love between them. And it's always something they knew about. It's hard to... I wish you had seen the movie. I didn't know you hadn't seen this film. Okay, but it's fine. I don't know. Hopefully my Crouching Tiger heads, my Aim Lee heads out there know what's up.
All right.
Anyway,
yes,
so
I'm sure they will.
I have to move on. Qui-Gon.
It's beautiful stuff.
We're back to the present. Qui-Gon checks in on Obi-Wan, who is meditating. And then he meets with Kevta and Beanie. You mentioned them, right? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm spaced out a little bit during your last thing. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
I should be more present with you.
It's okay.
I apologize.
This is not how we usually do the show,
okay.
so...
I don't know. Oh, it's been a weird summer. Okay, so... Kevta and Beanie, they discuss details of the Absolute's raids with Qui-Gon. And if Balog is headed to the nearby Absolute stronghold, Qui-Gon should be able to track him from the village, as there are only a few ways through the mountains, and the Absolute Raiders must have taken one of those paths. Or a combination of those paths. So Qui-Gon checks on Obi-Wan again, and now Obi-Wan's sleeping. So this inspires Qui-Gon. He's like, I gotta sleep. I've been up for days. And so... he has a dream, though, and he's back on Zukale with Tal, like in the flashback we just read. And but in this version, her body is lifeless. This startles Qui-Gon awake. He goes once again to check on Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan senses his master's presence immediately, wakes up. He checks his leg and assures his master that he is ready to travel. Yancey is brought in, surprised at Obi-Wan's progress, clears him, says, okay, you can go. Just, be careful. And Qui-Gon doesn't want to wake Aretha because he doesn't want the distraction of protecting her on this mission. But he knows that if he leaves her behind, she'll just follow them, and that could be even more dangerous. So when they reach the transports... So he's going to wake her up, but when they reach the transport, she's already there. Aretha's already there. Interesting. What could be going on? We don't know! We really don't know, Levi! Where was it? God damn it. She's already fueling up. She's stubborn. And so they head to the last area where the rock workers had lost the Absolutes and search for evidence of Balog's trail. And Obi-Wan finds exhaust marks from Balog's speeder heading west. So they eventually reach his campsite from the night before. And it seems that he had left that morning. And they hear a transport coming from behind them. Mm-hmm. They're like, ooh. It's not Balog. It's still not Balog. It's Yancey.
Yancey.
There's been a massive raid back in the village, and they need the Jedi's help. Qui-Gon takes Obi-Wan aside and tells him, go ahead and help. But they're too close to Tal for him to go back now. Obi-Wan's very shocked by this. And we're going to read a little bit. Page 87 to 89. And we're going to start here. I'll read Obi-Wan.
Okay.
Let's have some fun.
All right.
Let's mix it up
Let's change it up a little bit.
Obi-Wan stared at him, astonished. Qui-Gon understood how he felt. The rock workers were in desperate need of help. The Jedi were asked to give it. He could not believe that Qui-Gon would turn away like this. But how could he return when he felt Tal's presence, when he knew she was only hours away? It's hard to leave our pursuit of Tal, Obi-Wan said. But the rock workers need us, Qui-Gon.
They need Jedi help, it is true, Qui-Gon said. He put his hand on Obi-Wan's shoulder. You can provide this, but our first mission is to save Tal.
Our first mission always is to save lives and promote justice, Obi-Wan said, incredulous. The rockworkers need both of us, Obi-Wan. Because he's acting like the master. I got screwed up. Let me actually just, our first mission is always to save lives and promote justice. I don't have a UN impression. Obi-Wan said, incredulous. The rockworkers need both of us, Qui-Gon.
I'm going forward, Qui-Gon said. His gaze was as flinty as the rocks surrounding them.
Good as hell.
I cannot turn back now. Tall was so close he could feel her, and he could feel that she was slipping away from him.
What about Aretha? Obi-Wan asked, lowering his voice. If she returns with me, we will be putting her in danger. And if she goes on with you, she will not have the full protection she needs.
Obi-Wan was right. Qui-Gon struggled with the dilemma for a moment. She will go with you, he said, but before you reach the rock workers' camp, you must leave her in a safe place. You must do this, Obi-Wan. She has no place in that battle. I will come when I can.
Master, Obi-Wan said, his eyes locking on Qui-Gon's. Look at me. Look at me.
I'm looking.
This is wrong. You know it is. Tall would say the same. How can you turn your back on these people, Levi?
Our mission is too...
I'm sorry.
Our mission is too important, Qui-Gon said. And Tall... His voice died and his hand dropped from Obi-Wan's shoulder. They stood, not speaking for a moment. Qui-Gon felt the gulf between them, his Padawan filled with doubt and confusion, but he couldn't explain. Not here, not now. He would have to go back to the vision he had on Coruscant, how every event since they had arrived on New Absalom had confirmed his dread, and he would have to tell Obi-Wan how he felt about Tall. That was a conversation for another time. His Padawan looked so confused that he relented. Obi-Wan, I cannot abandon her, he said in a low voice. His gaze pleaded with Obi-Wan to understand. But he
got no such understanding. Obi-Wan shook his head. You're wrong.
The flat words took him aback. It had been years since Obi-Wan had contradicted him so boldly. Qui-Gon, flushed with emotion, wasn't sure of himself. He turned away without another word and headed for his landspeeder.
Damn!
This book throws so many punches. It's just relentlessly.
We're gonna get to our final thoughts, but I think very highly of this book. I don't know what that was. Sorry, I keep doing voices.
I know.
I'm doing voices.
You need to get some. I don't know what.
I'm gonna drink some water.
You should do that.
You could recap chapter 12. 12. Yeah, we're on 12.
12. Only
speeding along.
Yes. Oh, doesn't feel like it. Obi-Wan is angry. Obi has felt a rift between them and him and Qui-Gon since they arrived on New Absalom when they arrived, and now he worries that rift has only gotten deeper. However, Obi-Wan doesn't regret what he says to Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon is turning his back on their Jedi principles. Obi-Wan truly believes what Qui-Gon is doing is wrong. Now this reminds him of a rift they had once before.
Oh, what could it be?
One long ago, on a planet called Melita Dawn. Ever hear of it, Tim?
I remember something about that.
However, the tables were turned, and that was when Obi-Wan turned his back on Qui-Gon. He tells Irthra Qui-Gon's plan to hide her, and she agrees. Yancey shows them a place that she thinks is safe. And then Obi-Wan feels a disturbance in the Force. He turns to see a growing speck in the distance. It's Qui-Gon. A little bit here from 93, 94. Qui-Gon looked at him directly. His face showed the signs of a great internal struggle. I was wrong, Padawan. Thank you for pointing it out to me. My duty lies here no matter, he said with difficulty, what it may cost.
Obi-Wan nodded. I'm glad you came back.
That's okay. That's what we were covering. So they take off for the workers' camp.
That was... I'm sorry.
Okay.
I could have done that in the other room.
It's okay.
I apologize to our listeners.
The train is moving.
This is a disastrous episode. We had such a good episode last week.
I know, and we've fallen apart. We thought doing this in person, and so quickly after that episode was such a good idea.
Oh, it's happening. It's all happening. People like this.
Yes, for sure. They take off for the workers' camp, but when they get near, they expect to hear fighting. Instead, they hear an eerie silence. And we're going to read here 94 to 96. This is a lot, but the punches are coming even harder.
94?
Yes. Something lay in the road ahead. Obi-Wan didn't need to come closer to know what it was. The disturbance in the Force had told him everything. Yancey slowed to a crawl, almost stalling her swoop. "It's a body," she said shakenly. Suddenly, she gunned the engine and zoomed ahead. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon sped up to catch up to her. Yancey was off her swoop before she stopped. It kept going and crashed, but she didn't react. She raced towards the body in the road. Her cry was terrible.
"Kevta!" She bent over the body, with tears streaming down her face. She checked for vital signs. She placed her hands on his chest. "Kevta!" Her cry turned to a moan, and she collapsed, cradling his head.
Qui-Gon's face went pale. Obi-Wan saw that his master could not tear his gaze away from the sight. "Master," he said, "we need to go on, find out what happened."
Qui-Gon's nod seemed to take forever. One moment, his voice was hoarse.
He got off the land speeder and walked towards Yancey's side. He crouched by her and put a hand on her shoulder. He did not speak a word. He let his presence balance her grief until she was able to lift her head.
"I left him," she said, her voice broken. "He made me go. I am the best on a swoop," he said. "I am the one who knows the quarries best. I was the one who could catch the Jedi. I left him."
"You left in order to save your people," Qui-Gon said.
"And I failed them. If Kevta is dead, I don't want to see the rest of the camp." Yancey gently laid her head on Kevta's chest. "I will stay here. I can't leave him."
Qui-Gon squeezed her shoulder and then stood. Wordlessly, he nodded at Obi-Wan. The two Jedi knew what they were about to find. Death lay ahead of them. They walked further into the camp. Some of the dwellings were still smoking from fires that the Absolutes had set. Bodies lay along the side of the road. The rock workers still clutched the tools that they had used as weapons. Obi-Wan saw Beanie on the ground. Her sightless eyes stared up at the sky. He knelt beside her and gently closed her eyelids. "Sleep well," he murmured. Qui-Gon entered the school. Several long moments passed before he exited. "It's better for you to not go in there," he told Obi-Wan. "The rock workers tried to hide the children in there. The Absolutes left absolutely no one alive."
Absolutely. It doesn't say absolutely.
No, it
in
doesn't.
the text, just for the listeners, that was a little embellishment by Levi.
Obi-Wan turned away. Qui-Gon was right. He did not need to see it.
Oh.
So that is, oh man.
Intense.
There's some
sequence
intense.
right there.
So Yancey
I
walks.
apologize for that voice acting.
It's okay. You were trying to convey a broken grief and emotion.
Yeah.
But I will want to say here, there's a lot of hands on shoulders in this book.
Oh.
There is.
Well, the book's about grief.
It is.
And I will say, if you've ever gone through any period of grief, you get a lot of hands on your shoulders. People are like, "Here, hey, just so you know, my hand.
There's a lot of power.
My hand's
in a hand.
right here.
There's
It's
a lot
right
of
there
power.
on the shoulder. On the shoulder. You should feel.
That's
You feel some human connection.
That's giving your force to someone else.
You need to feel that human connection, Levi. You know,
We're
when you're
touching
feeling that
shoulders now.
disconnected, when you're feeling that disconnected from everything, when the death of someone or some catastrophic event just breaks you from your life, and you just feel like not present anywhere, then even just a hand on your shoulder can remind you you're part of something. There's something going on with you and this other person. Even if it's a person you don't know. You and other human beings, man. So, Moving on.
Yes, and so the Absolutes took all of the explosives and blasting equipment, and they start to root around, and they notice a red soil on the ground that came off a boot. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon take a sample of this, and Yancey, who strolls back into the town, they show it to her, and they're like, Yancey, do you know what this is? And she goes, I know exactly where the Absolutes hideout is.
Damn. So, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Aerith. I'm going to go with Aerith this time.
Okay.
How about that? Does that seem like a good compromise?
Yes.
Aerith. She's one of the sisters. Much to Qui-Gon's chagrin, she comes along, and they prepare to head out for the coordinates provided by Yancey. Yancey tells them that they're going to have to abandon their transports eventually and approach the rest of the way on foot once they get there. There's a road, but the best way to approach without being seen is through some narrow canyons. Walking through them narrow canyons. So, Aerith has called the city workers to come and pick up Yancey. And Qui-Gon has trouble facing Yancey's grief. Is this what awaits him? They begin their journey to the Absolute Compound. And Qui-Gon's mind is lost in his conflicting emotions. So they do reach the area where they need to abandon their transports, and they walk single file through those narrow canyons. And so they come upon an area with the red soil that that Yancey was talking about, and they see a cave. No one seems to be around. It's interesting. Aerith suggests, why don't we go back? More sus behavior from Aerith. But, no, they're not going to go back. And while observing a nearby lake, Obi-Wan sees a tremble in the water. There's no wind in this valley, however. The base must be underground, Levi. Underground! How are they going to find it? Qui-Gon's like, let's start with the cave. And despite another request for her to stay behind from Qui-Gon, Aerith insists once again on coming along. I'm just saying.
You're real suspicious of her.
There's nothing she does in this book that earns my trust.
You have a point. I did not suspect her. I haven't suspected her this whole time, but you raise a very good point.
She does a lot of just weird stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
I feel like it's called into question. We'll talk more about it. There's a couple more things that happen.
All right. So they head into the cave and quickly find some jumpsuits and hats that they can use to blend in. They pass some other Absolutes, and with a slight nod from Qui-Gon, the Absolute workers keep going about their day. No suspicion. Qui-Gon notes that this means that there is enough Absolutes that they don't know all each other. You can pass somebody in the hallway and not know them, but they're still your coworker. They come to a door that
I know who that is.
Right.
You see him outside of work, and you're like,
that guy.
Who is this person?
Right.
Oh, it's that guy I never talk to at work. Because we don't work together anymore, man. I don't know what I'm trying to say. That's
exactly the point that they make. They come to a door that requires a retinal scan, and they notice they can use their grappling hooks to just fly over this door. So they tell what we're saying now.
Aerith?
Aerith,
like Erica, but with a TH.
Okay. Yes.
Think about it that way.
That's for sure. They tell Aerith to stay behind and alert them if any problems arrive. They fly easily over the door, and they find another barricaded Durasteel door. Qui-Gon uses his lightsaber to cut through it. On the other side, they find it full of storage full of explosives. Not just the ones stolen from the quarry workers, but black market ones too. And this confirms one of Qui-Gon's suspicions, because he sees Moda, the dude who sold him the probe droid, symbol on the crate. Obi-Wan remarks that there's enough explosives here to level an entire city. So Qui-Gon says they must plan to take the city by force if they have to. No closer to Tal, they decide to turn back, only to discover that Aerith has been spotted by security. Qui-Gon has to hold Obi back. He doesn't want the Absolutes to know that the Jedi are there, and he wants to see how she handles it. Aretha, and you know what? This could be Qui-Gon. He's knows something, because Qui-Gon, he'll know information and not parlay it along until way later.
Yeah, he waits too long to tell people.
Aretha, she pulls me and my twin sister helping you guys card. And the guards are like, we gotta fact check this, but why don't you come with us? So Qui-Gon thinks she's handled it well, but now they have 2 people to save.
So they follow Aretha's captors for a bit, but then Qui-Gon thinks they need to create a distraction for the entire base to make it easier to search. So they backtrack to that weapons room and they set off several small explosions. And Obi-Wan is impressed at this point by his master's resolve. Has he regained his mojo? Has his mojo been regained? We'll have to wait. Dozens of absolutes are heading towards these explosions. They see Balog running there as well, and they wait for him to check it out and then leave, and then they follow him when he leaves. Presumably they think too tall. So he turns down a narrow, dark hallway with a door at the end of it, and when Balog enters the door, Qui-Gon speeds up. He does that Jedi speed that a lot of 45-year-olds really fucking hate. That's too many steps. Too many steps. Too few steps. I'm tired. This is all very funny in my head, and I'm sure it makes no sense to the listeners.
You're wild. You're a little wild today. You're wired.
Okay, anyway.
And I'm not present, so...
You're present. Everyone's present. Okay.
Alright.
Qui-Gon speeds up, just barely makes it inside the door before it closes, leaving Obi-Wan outside in the hallway.
Yes. The door shuts behind Qui-Gon, and his lightsaber is already activated. Balog stands in the center of a room, while the sensory deprivation tank containing Tal is leaning against the corner. Qui-Gon can see her eyes flutter inside. Obi-Wan cuts through the door, but Balog stops them when he holds up a small remote, and we're going to read page 118 to 119. I will be Balog.
Do you see this?
Balog asked, holding the transmitter aloft.
I can give your friend the last lethal dose. She is very weak. I wanted to keep her alive, but I've realized that there is no need.
What do you want? Qui-Gon asked.
Nothing from you, Balog said contemptuously. You've done enough already. You've found this place. Well, your worker allies won't find anything when they arrive. No records, nothing to spy on, nothing to steal.
You set the weapons room to detonate, Qui-Gon guessed. Guess, that sounds like such a guess. I can't act.
It's okay. I'll be gone before that happens. We have plenty of support in the city. We don't need these followers to accomplish what we need.
You don't care what lives are lost.
I care about Absalom. My Absalom, Balog said fiercely. Not the Absalom the workers want. You Jedi are in my way.
He stepped back and accessed a door behind him. A tiny space contained a small transport with a bubble-shaped top. Another door was cut into the far wall, no doubt to allow the exit of the transport into the lake. The interior door would close, allowing the compartment to flood. Now I'm leaving. You may make it out of here. You may make it out of here when the explosive room goes, but I doubt it, especially when you have to drag your friend along, Balog pointed at Tal with his chin, and believe me, she's no in shape to walk. I made sure of that.
Balog's an asshole. He's a bad man.
He's a terrible, terrible man.
He's not a good person.
No, he's not. And he's shit. And Obi-Wan. Okay. Oh, we're gonna keep.
I cut you off. I'm
no,
sorry.
it's okay because there's a great moment here. It was sort of Qui-Gon tensed. 119.
119. I closed the book. Qui-Gon tensed, then relaxed. It took an effort of will to absorb his anger and continue to wait for his opening.
I leave you to your fate, Balog said, stepping towards the transport. His small dark eyes glinted. Don't either of you move. You see my finger near this button? If you try to stop me, and are a fraction off. If you stumble, if you give me only a split second, I can press it. If you move towards me, I could flinch and press it. In one short, 1,000 things could go wrong.
Wait. If, in short, one of the 1,000 things that could go wrong does go wrong,
Tall will die.
Qui-Gon sprang. He had never moved faster or more surely. He knew that Balog did not see him, that one moment he was standing meters away, and the next he was in the air next to him. With careful precision, Qui-Gon brought his lightsaber down, neatly slicing off Balog's finger. The transmitter fell to the floor. I guess you didn't flinch, Qui-Gon said.
Oh.
Boom! Don't fuck with Qui-Gon.
No. Don't try to make some contemptuous claim that you're like, I'm faster than you, I'm better than you. Get out of here.
He introduced Jedi speed that, again, the 45-year-olds hate. That's a joke that I feel like maybe makes sense.
It kind of makes sense, yeah.
I'm just talking about like Gen X losers that think that like the prequels raped their child.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about with the 45-year-olds.
The Jedi are fast and stuff.
Yes. And
they're mad about that. And that's what I'm talking about, Levi. That's what I've been talking about this whole time, Levi.
I know.
This whole podcast.
I'm aware.
Okay.
Tim's against the boomers.
Not the boomers.
The 45-year-olds.
Whatever. The boomers have their own issues, but... And whatever. I was just talking about how much I like Pearl Jam. I have no problem with the Gen Xers, but when it comes to Star Wars, fuck you. I'm sorry.
No. I want to tell you a joke I heard. I heard this joke on the radio.
And by the way, if we have any listeners over the age of 40, we're very grateful, and I'm very sorry.
I want to tell you a joke. All right. A man woke up, and he went to the doctor, and he goes, Doctor, I have forgotten all 90s music. And the doctor goes, How bad is it? And the man says, I don't know. What's the cure? And the doctor says, It's worse than I thought.
Oh, well, first of all, The Cure is primarily an 80s band. Most of their greatest music is in the 80s, but it's a funny joke. Whatever. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Wish is good, but that's like the only significant Cure album after the 80s. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry that I got my stupid music nerd pedantry out.
It's fine.
It's fine. What is wrong with me?
You don't have to apologize for any of this. All right.
This feels bad.
All right.
This feels like a bad episode.
It'll be fine. We will get through it. Okay. Obi-Wan lunges for Balog, but there's a force from another explosion. It nearly knocks him over. Qui-Gon heads for Tall. Balog gets in the transport, and the room begins to fill with water. Qui-Gon cries for Obi-Wan's help, leaving Balog to escape. They pull Tall out of the coffin. She's so weak she can barely hold her head up. They escape the water-filled room that's currently at their waist, and when they get back into the cave where they were before, it's only ankle deep. The cave is deserted and filled with smoke. Then on page 122, Qui-Gon allowed Tall to slide down his body so that she was on her feet. Her legs immediately gave away. He picked her up again and cradled her against him. He had to control his anger against Balog for her sake. What she needed was for him to be calm. Tall, he said gently, we're going to make it out of here. One hand curled around his neck. He felt the gesture, her cold hand against his neck, and it curdled his blood. It was the same gesture she had made in the vision, the gesture that had told him how close to death she was.
She managed to smile up at him. It is too late for me, dear friend, she said softly.
The vision, Tim! It's the vision! It's the vision that Qui-Gon's been having this whole time!
It's the vision, yeah.
Chapter 17.
I'm crashing.
Just stay hooked and stay on your notes. Please stay on your notes.
So, this flashback, we're just going to read this whole flashback. I know it's a long one.
Okay.
It's 5 pages. But it's important. This is the last significant... Wait, I'm on the wrong chapter.
Okay.
There is a flashback. But it's when Qui-Gon and Tall are 10 years old, before they were Padawans. They're showing off for the Masters in sparring matches, kind of like the beginning of the first Jedi Apprentice book.
With Obi-Wan.
So, it comes down to a match between Qui-Gon and Tall. And Qui-Gon admires Tall's relentlessness, inability to give up. She just keeps him going forever, but he does ultimately take advantage of a slight slip in her strategy, and he does win the match. but she dominated most of the way. You know, you can't. It's like, you know, you can't blame LeBron James for losing the 2017 finals. You know, it's like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when you're faced with Qui-Gon Jinn? You know? Qui-Gon Jinn is like a team of 4 All-Stars in the starting line. So, but where was I? Anyway, they have a little exchange, you know, where he says, you know, he's like, "Oh, you never give up, do you?" And she says, "Never." And back to the present. Qui-Gon is terrified by this vision coming true. It's come true. Whatever it was, the vision never said that she did die, but it all implied it. And he's like, well, everything that happened in the vision happened. So he's like, what's going on? So that's what he sounds like, too. Tall urges him to leave her behind, but he reminds her that she never gives up. The way they came through is blocked, and the place is flooding fast, but Tall tells them about another exit to an underwater base. And Obi-Wan's like, yeah, but what about Aerotha? And Qui-Gon sends his Padawan to find Aerotha while he waits by the underwater entrance with Tall. But luckily, in all the chaos, Aerotha was able to escape. She's like, oh, nobody was paying attention to me. Another sus-ass thing done by Erica. Not Erica, Aerotha.
Aerotha.
No shots at any Ericas that might be listening. But the... she was able to escape. She's swimming towards them right now. They head through the underwater tunnel to find that Balog has yet to set off explosions in the underwater base. It might be happening, we don't know. But they begin looking for a ramp that can get them to shore. Qui-Gon notices Tall's veins in her face. Blood is still flowing. This gives him some hope. There's still some hope. And Obi-Wan finds the controls for an exit ramp, looks through a quote-unquote electroscope, also known as a telescope. And he sees the absolute forces gathering on the shore. Can they activate the ramp without being noticed? Ew, it does not look good. And so, they'll have to swim. Can Obi-Wan swim with his leg? Yes, he says. Qui-Gon gives Tall his breathing device, and they swim, him carrying her, dragging her along, to a distant part of the shore, and make a short walk to the narrow canyons, where their speeders are. And Qui-Gon's beginning to get tired, but they reach the speeders. Speeders untouched by the Absolutes, unfound by the Absolutes. Aerotha says, Qui-Gon, use my speeder. It's bigger and faster. You'll get back more quickly. So, we're going to read from page 132. 132, Levi. Where are we?
All right. 132.
132. Okay. They found their transports where they had left them. Relief flooded Qui-Gon. His last fear was that the Absolutes would have found them.
Take my land speeder, Qui-Gon Jinn, Aerotha offered. It is faster than yours.
Thank you. Qui-Gon gently placed Tall in the companion seat. He swung into the pilot seat and glanced over. As always, she could sense when he was looking at her. And as always, she could sense his mood.
Stop being so worried, she said quietly.
I'll try.
I'm gaining strength from every moment of your strength.
He took her hand. He called up the Force from the air around them. He felt her do the same, though her hold on the Force was weak. It was all right. He would provide the extra strength she needed. He felt their power combine.
Aerotha came to stand by the speeder. Go directly to the Supreme Governor's residence, she said. I will call ahead and have Medcare waiting for you.
Qui-Gon nodded his thanks. He activated the engines.
And
I will see you in New Absalom, he told Obi-Wan. He reached inside his tunic and handed Tall's lightsaber to Obi-Wan. Until yours recharges.
I will guard it with my life, Obi-Wan swallowed. The concern in his eyes was all for Tall. He gently touched her shoulder. Safe journey.
Tall answered weakly. Thank you for finding me, Obi-Wan.
May the Force be with you, Obi-Wan said.
It is, Qui-Gon said confidently, and raced off. So, very intense.
Qui-Gon drives the rest of the day and all through the night to get them back to New Absalon. Tall slips in and out of consciousness throughout the ride. They talk briefly, and she brings up the list of absolutes that the absolutes are after. She never had it, but she figured she better pretend to have it in order to stay alive. However, there's parts of the whole story that make no sense to her, like how did the absolutes find out she was a Jedi? This is where Qui-Gon informs her that Aerotha believes that Alani is in cahoots with the Absolutes. It all makes sense now, because Alani was the one who told her about the list and to let her know if she were to find anything with the Absolutes. She tells Qui-Gon about how she barely escaped the Absolutes when her cover was blown, but she escaped with the help of a low-level member of the Absolutes named Oleg. Oleg was a message runner, and he was marked for interrogation. Tall didn't know why, but it could have been because he was being blackmailed by FBI agent Stan Beeman to give Russian secrets to the U.S. government. Tall drifts off again. That was a reference to the
Americans.
The FX series, The Americans.
You're watching on Amazon Prime. Watch it.
Oleg
is my king.
Oleg rules.
Gentle giant Oleg.
You know what? Speaking of The Americans, you know how Philip, throughout the season, sometimes he just has that like blank, empty, like he's dead inside stare.
Philip Jennings, played by Matthew Reese.
Yes, he has like the best dead inside stare.
Yes.
I wonder if a certain character in this book, his face mirrors that. Yeah,
yes. Qui-Gon is definitely going through a Philip Jennings kind of moment.
Yes, he is. Very
much so. Yeah. And also very Michelle Yeoh kind of moment.
Okay, all right. So when they reach the city, Mannix meets them outside of the governor's house, and he says, "Hey, you guys need to follow me to a hotel." Qui-Gon is skeptical at first because Aerotha told him that she would get treatment at the house. But he agrees. They pull up to a building, and a whole medical team rushes out to take Tall. As they whisk her away, Qui-Gon asks them if she'll be okay, but they just don't know yet.
All right. So chapter 19. This is the whole flashback that we're going to read. It's 5 pages. I'm sorry.
Hang on. I got to get water before you do that.
Okay.
Hang on. Ooh, I got an idea.
I can read the whole thing.
Well, it's Tall and Obi-Wan, right? Tall and Qui-Gon, right?
It is Tall and
Mel,
Qui-Gon.
get over here. You can read for Tall.
I'm not in this episode.
Oh, come on. All right, let me get some water. Here, I'll catch up. You start reading.
Mel will get a credit on the episode just for this.
The laugh track.
Yeah.
I don't think you've laughed once, though.
She laughed.
I have. I'm trying not to be, like, super loud about it.
Yeah, it's fine. Hey. We'll have to bring her back for a full episode. Someday! We'll figure it out. Okay. Qui-Gon sat by the shore of the lake and stared at the cliff. The rocky surface seemed completely sheer. The cliff looked impossibly big, but most things looked pretty big to him. He was 8 years old. They had already climbed the cliff face with cable launchers in class. They had learned to use their body's weight and hone their balance, correct their timing. They had done it over and over again. Next week, they would do it without cable launchers under the supervision of a Jedi Master. It would be one of their force exercises. He knew he should not be thinking of climbing it freehand, but he was. Qui-Gon wanted to gobble up the challenges the Jedi teachers threw at the students. A week was too long to wait. It wasn't so very high, really. It was just a big rock. There were handholds and footholds, even if he couldn't see them. If he fell, he would fall into the lake. If he were caught, he would be in trouble. Then again, he wouldn't get caught. It was dawn, and the lake area was deserted. He heard the rustle behind him and turned. It was a fellow student, Tall. She was in his class, but he didn't know her very well. She was slight, smaller than the rest of them. She looked like a little boy, he thought. He did not think of himself as a little boy.
She nodded at the cliff. You thinking of climbing it?
Startled, he was about to say no. But Jedi did not lie, even for small things. Accustomed to the lie you become, Yoda had warned them. Easy it becomes to be false in big things. If false, you are in small ones. Good advice from Yoda.
It is.
So he said nothing.
To his surprise, she grinned. Come on.
When he hesitated, she added,
But I bet I can beat you to the top.
She ran and launched herself at the rock face, grabbing her first handhold. He hesitated for just a moment, surprised at how eagerly she attacked the rock. Then she seemed to mold herself against it. She waited until Qui-Gon ran forward and joined her. It was harder than he'd thought. The handholds that seemed so firm with him, to him with a cable on his belt, now seemed impossibly tiny. The rock had become his enemy. It was tricky to keep his balance. Sweat began to pour down his face. His muscles shook with effort. He forgot about Tall's challenge and concentrated on not falling off. He was 3/4 of the way to the top when he looked over at her. They were neck and neck. Her face was grimy and sweaty. She grinned. The grin spurred him on. He found the next handhold, then the next. She was behind him now, and he was almost there. He searched for the next handhold, his face pressed against the rough rock. Suddenly, she was beside him, climbing easily. Then she was ahead of him, her hand reaching for the top. She swung herself up and over, then sat, breathing hard. Qui-Gon followed, feeling furious and ashamed. She had beaten him. When he turned to Tall, he expected to see triumph in her eyes. Instead, he saw excitement.
I felt it, Qui-Gon. I felt the Force, she slapped. She slapped the ground, her green gold eyes blazing. The rock, it was part of me. I was part of everything, even the air. It was just the way Yoda said it would be.
Now he was envious as well as embarrassed.
I can tell what you did wrong, she said, nudging him on the shoulder. You hated the rock. You fought it. I did too in the beginning. You need to love the rock.
Love the rock? That sounded silly. Qui-Gon wanted to tell her that, but he knew what she meant. And suddenly, he didn't want to hurt her feelings.
I have an idea for a sketch.
Okay.
Tall stood. Now for the reward. Come on. She ran forward and leaped off the end of the rock, straight into the shimmering green water.
Qui-Gon followed. It was a long drop, but the shock of the water felt refreshing. Tall waited underwater for him. She grinned, and Qui-Gon smiled back. The cool water felt so good. Oh, God. I want that cool water right now. I had to turn the air conditioning off. And he climbed the rock. Next time, he would do better. Next time, he would love the rock. They burst up to the surface. Tall's dark hair was slicked back on her forehead. Now she looked like a water creature, sleek and supple.
Suddenly she frowned. Someone's coming, she murmured. Do you see, down by the path?
Qui-Gon said nothing, but a fraction of a second later, he noticed a disturbance in the overhanging leaves, far down the path.
We're supposed to be in meditation right now, she whispered.
This way, he said. He stroked to the edge of the lake, where a rocky outcropping would shield them. They waited in the shadows, shivering a little from the coolness of the water. They heard the unmistakable sound of Yoda's shuffling step. Of all the Jedi Masters, for Yoda to catch them! Qui-Gon's eyes narrowed in concern, but Tall looked as though she would burst out laughing. Qui-Gon placed a hand over her mouth, and grinning, she did the same to him. Yoda stopped on the path over their heads. They did not breathe. After a moment, he moved on. After Yoda had moved away, Tall dropped her hand, and Qui-Gon dropped his.
You know, you almost beat me to the top, she said. We could be rivals, but I think it would be better if we were friends.
Let's be friends, Qui-Gon agreed. He spoke soberly. He took friendship seriously. Already he knew he wanted to be friends with this girl. As if she couldn't contain herself any longer, Tall dived underwater and moved away from him. She came up, shaking off water. The sun was shining, and the rays made the droplets shimmer.
Friends forever, she called to him, treading water. Deal?
Deal, he said.
Forever.
Oh, damn! Okay, so, there's more.
I know, there's a whole chapter here.
Obi-Wan and Aerith, this is back in the present. Obi-Wan and Aerith, they show up to the hospital, and Aerith is relentless, says to contact, not relentless, she's restless. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
She says contact her when they know anything. She leaves. Obi-Wan speculates about the motive for Tall's kidnapping. Perhaps when she was seen with Oleg, and that's why she was believed to be in possession of the list, etc., etc. Qui-Gon is ignoring this. He can't really focus. He's barely listening. He acknowledges the theory. He's like, nice theory, Obi-Wan. You know, but yeah, the Doctor then comes out, and I'm sorry, we got to read 2 more pages.
It's fine because I'm going to make us read 3 pages.
Okay, great. So we're going to start here. The doors slid open.
What page?
Page 147.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The doors slid open, and the med team emerged. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan stood. The Doctor went straight to Qui-Gon. Her vital signs are dropping. We did everything we could do. The damage to her internal organs was severe. She will see you now.
Qui-Gon searched for the Doctor's face. So she will recover?
Her damage is severe, the Doctor repeated. His weary eyes were full of sadness as he looked at Qui-Gon.
She will recover, Qui-Gon repeated. This time, there was certainty in his voice. He strode past the Doctor and hurried into the room where Tal was kept. She was laying in a diagnostic bed. He ignored the readouts and the sensors. He took her hand and she turned her head slowly toward him. He was relieved to see that the med team had removed those disgusting lenses from her eyes.
Disguising lenses.
Oh, disguising. That is disguising.
That's the lenses.
Well, he didn't like those lenses because they made her eyes
They made her
dark.
eyes a different color, and it's all about that eyes.
He loves
baby.
those eyes. And that honey skin, the honey skin is not mentioned in this book.
Yeah, which is a little surprising considering what's about to happen.
He had missed seeing Tal's lovely green and gold eyes. Now the face he loved was before him. Just as he had always known it, he had known every line and every curve, every strong feature, every soft hollow. He took her hand, but received no answering pressure. Qui-Gon ran his fingers down her bare arm to feel her skin. It was so cold, so cold. Her lips parted. He had to bend his head to hear her.
Wherever I am headed, I will wait for you, Qui-Gon. I've always been a solitary traveler.
Not anymore, he said. Remember, we will go on together. You promised, he teased. You can't get back out now. I will never let you forget it.
Her smile and the slight pressure of her fingers seemed to cost her a great effort. Panic shot through him. He brought his face close. He placed his forehead against hers. Her skin was so cool against his. He willed his own warmth and energy into her body. Of what benefit was his great strength? What was it good for if he could not heal her? Qui-Gon called on everything he knew, everything he believed in, his connection to the Force, his great love for Tal, to enter her and give her strength.
He felt a small sigh flutter against his cheek. Her fingers pressed against his. He knew that she had felt what he had tried to give her, and had received comfort in it. He had never felt so attuned to her, so close. If he could breathe for her, he would.
Let my last moment be this one, she said.
He felt her breath go in, then out, soft against his cheek. Then it did not resume.
Alright, so, before we get to the last chapter, I'll finish my Crouching Tiger thing.
Okay.
Spoiler.
One of them dies.
Chow Yun Fat dies. There you go. You gave me the full spoiler. I ruined the movie for you.
You could have just told me one of them dies, and I would have still gotten the same point.
You're right, actually. Whatever. That's all that happened. Whatever. Yeah. But that scene, I want to post that scene on our social media. It's a beautiful scene.
Okay, we can
and
do
most
that.
people have seen Crouching Tiger, so I feel like
it was a very popular movie when it
very
came out.
popular film. Highest grossing foreign film of all time. Well, no, I think foreign language film, I was going to say. I think that's Passion of the Christ, unfortunately. But actual foreign film made by, like, a director from another country, it is, I believe, still. Although that's also a co-production with an American studio. Who cares? Chapter 20. The end of the book.
We're going to read this whole thing.
Oh, great. It's 3 pages, so...
Obi-Wan sat, his head in his hands. Suddenly he straightened. He felt a disturbance in the Force. Something had been sucked out of the air, a powerful energy collapsing, leaving a vacuum. When he heard the cry from the other room, at first he did not know who could have made it. Then he realized it had been his master. He heard running feet in the corridor outside, the waiting room, the med team. He dashed to the door and activated it, then followed the med team into Tal's room. 2 of the team checked the monitoring equipment. The doctor stood by. He did nothing. That was when Obi-Wan fully understood that Tall was gone. The med team stood back from the equipment. No one tried to move the large man bent over the body in bed. His grief was too huge, too private. Tall's eyes were closed. Her hand rested in Qui-Gon's. A slight smile was still on her face. His forehead was pressed against hers. He did not move a muscle. He did not let go of her hand. Obi-Wan was staggered by the pain he felt in the room. The very lines of Qui-Gon's body told him of the agony so immense that he could not grasp it. The intimacy of Qui-Gon's posture, the way his forehead rested against Tall's, suddenly told Obi-Wan that he had not begun to realize the depths of Qui-Gon's feelings. With that knowledge, his heart broke for his master. He took a step closer. How could he help Qui-Gon? What could he do? Qui-Gon turned. Obi-Wan saw a face that had changed. Something was gone, or something was added. He did not know. But it was no longer the face that he knew so well. Grief had marked it forever. Obi-Wan knew that in his bones. He would have his own grief for Tall. It would never match Qui-Gon's. He approached the bed slowly. He had no words for this. Nothing he had learned at the temple, nothing Qui-Gon had taught him had prepared him for it. He placed his hand on Qui-Gon's shoulders. "Let me help you, Master." Qui-Gon's eyes were dead.
There is no help for me now.
Qui-Gon looked down at Tall's lifeless body. His hand still clasped hers.
There is only revenge. Could this be the call to vengeance?
It could be. And if you look at the Call to Vengeance cover, that's the
next book.
This is a man beyond
You gotta
enraged.
post something on the Instagram with that photo, that picture of Qui-Gon next to a picture of Philip Jennings looking pissed.
Okay. I have the exact photo for that too.
Yeah, there's plenty of great Phil looking pissed. So, Phil. Anyway, this is a great book. I'm going to just say that.
It's amazing.
I think it's one of the best.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt.
I gave I broke new ground on the last Jedi Apprentice book, and I said that book, The Ties That Bind, was conceived in midichlorians. And honestly, if I said that about The Ties That Bind, I gotta say it about The Death of Hope, too.
Yep.
This book is incredible.
And I agree. And I almost regret not giving the last book a conceived in midichlorians, but this book is without
This
a doubt.
allows you
Yes, this book is without
to go.
a doubt.
It gave you room to go.
Because every time I gave a book a 10, the hope was that the next book would top that book. And
This is the first time that's happened.
this is the first time that's happened.
Because usually
that
there's a slight downstep.
in the next part of the arc, but this was the higher. This was, some people would say, the Empire Strikes Back.
No, that's what they would say.
Yes.
It's the Empire Strikes Back. Like every second movie ever is the Empire Strikes
Yes.
Back of something. Oh, it's the Empire Strikes Back of The Hangover. Oh, it's the Empire Strikes Back of Now You See Me.
Hope we get a third one of those.
Oh, it's got to be the Return of the Jedi, baby. We got to fucking have Jesse Eisenberg and Daniel Radcliffe hanging out on Endor
Now,
forever.
It's out there that it's conceived in midichlorians.
Yes.
Reading through some of these things again, do you think, I'm going to propose a question to you, do you think it was a mistake that they did not contact the Jedi?
Yes. 100%. Yes. The Jedi would have come.
Mm-hmm.
For one, because it was an insane situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that, obviously, Qui-Gon's doesn't fuck with the Council for the most part, I would say, and I think that's probably what, he just has a general distrust of them, and that's an issue of his. It's reasonable to have a distrust of the Council to some degree, as we know what happens, but, I don't know. I think Yoda's presence would have helped things along.
Yes.
I'm curious if Yoda, at any point in any of these books, is involved on an adventure level.
I hope so.
It would be cool, because I love Yoda, and I think she writes Yoda really well. And I liked that little piece of Yoda wisdom that I read.
And something also I liked about that flashback is Yoda stops on the bridge.
He clearly knows.
He knows they're there, yeah.
I love it. Yoda's so mischievous.
He is.
He's so mischievous, Levi.
And he wouldn't have cared.
He's such a little imp.
He wouldn't have cared. Now, however, who will care and make a big frickin' stink about it is Mace Windu, who is on.
He's in this
he
book,
is on the cover of this book, and he looks like he just smelled something very stinky.
It's almost like Qui-Gon is Brett from Pulp Fiction. Did I make that joke already?
No, you haven't. I can see that.
That's not a good joke. I feel like I said something like that. Anyway, maybe it was off mic. Anyway. Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
But I also love on this cover. Let's talk about the covers a little bit.
Okay. Well, we got to talk about the Death of Hope cover first.
Okay.
Since that's what this episode is. This Death of Hope cover, there's not going to be a huge disagreement about the design like we had with Deadly Hunter, and I know there's at least one listener out there who's on your side, which is a whole other thing.
They should be. Speaking of which, I have finally gotten my copy of the Deadly Hunter back today.
Yeah, okay. You were the one who left it in my house.
True.
Okay.
I'm glad I got it back.
So,
great cover.
And Death of Hope, though, this cover, it has Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan walking down a tunnel, and at the end is a hooded figure.
Who, very Grim Reaper-esque character.
It's not Balog, is it? I was thinking maybe it's supposed to be tall. Like she's the specter that keeps eluding them.
Okay,
But,
I can see that.
She looks too evil for that.
Yes, it looks very sinister.
I don't know. But the next cover, though, Call to Vengeance, which we'll talk more about next week, is a very cool cover. Qui-Gon's looking pissed.
He's enraged.
So,
and we have next to him in the background a very sweaty-looking Mace Windu, and then he almost looks like Tobey Maguire on the cover, young Obi-Wan, but he is emotionless. It's the eyes.
Not quite.
It's the eyes.
The
where
ears are more the
it's
tapping into. I'm not like, am I watching Ride with the Devil right now?
Okay.
Tobey Maguire's in that movie that nobody's seen, but it's a good film. Ain Lee, Tobey Maguire, Skeet Ulrich, Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, Skeet Ulrich, he's a fun character. You don't see him a whole lot.
Yeah, well, he's, there's a reason for that. He's not that interesting. But, regardless, it's a good film. Good revisionist Western. Okay. We gotta end this episode. I'm sorry. I'm putting an end to this episode. We both gave it conceived and midi
Yes.
This book's great. Next week is the Call to Vengeance. We are listening to the Call to Vengeance for this terrible episode, and I promise a better, more professional episode next week. But, in the meantime, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Padawan Library. Email us at padawanlibrary@gmail.com. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast thing, but especially Apple Podcasts. 5 stars only, of course. And thank you to those of you who have done that. And
that's it. Until the libraries are due back.
The books are closed?
Good job.
Yep.
Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by the Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2019 by Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.